I hired a caregiver because I could no longer manage everything on my own. For most of my life, I had been the kind of man who fixed his own roof, mowed his own lawn, and refused to ask anyone for help. Even after my wife passed away, I did everything I could to remain independent. I cooked my own meals, kept the house clean, paid my bills on time, and insisted I was doing just fine. But the truth had a way of revealing itself. My knees weren't as strong as they used to be. My hands shook whenever I tried to button a shirt. Carrying groceries from the car to the kitchen felt like climbing a mountain. Some mornings, I woke up with so much pain in my back that it took me nearly 15 minutes just to stand upright. My children noticed before I did. They tried to convince me to move in with one of them, but I refused. That house wasn't just where I lived. It was where I had spent 53 wonderful years with my late wife. Every room carried a memory. Every picture on the wall reminded me of a life we had built together. Leaving that house felt like leaving her behind, and I simply wasn't ready. After weeks of arguing, we reached a compromise. Instead of moving out, I would hire a caregiver. She would come during the day, help around the house, prepare meals, remind me to take my medication, drive me to doctor's appointments, and make sure I was safe. It sounded reasonable enough. I interviewed 3 different caregivers. The first seemed distracted. She spent more time looking at her phone than answering my questions. The second barely looked at me. She seemed interested only in the paycheck. Then the third woman walked through my front door. Her name was Amanda. She looked to be in her early 40s, neatly dressed, soft-spoken, and surprisingly easy to talk to. She smiled without forcing it and listened more than she spoke. When I asked why she became a caregiver, she didn't give me the rehearsed answer the others had. She explained that her grandmother had raised her after her parents died, and that caring for elderly people felt like a way of honoring the woman who had sacrificed everything for her. I remember thinking that was one of the most sincere things I'd ever heard. Maybe it was, or maybe she had simply become very good at telling people exactly what they wanted to hear. Either way, I hired her that afternoon. I remember thinking that maybe this wouldn't be so bad. She helped prepare breakfast, organized my medications, cleaned the house, and drove me to physical therapy twice every week. She never complained, even when I asked for things more than once, because my memory had begun playing tricks on me. The loneliness that had settled inside my home after my wife's death slowly began to disappear. For the first time in years, there was another person laughing in the kitchen, another person asking how I slept, another person reminding me to wear a sweater before going outside. Those little things mattered more than I realized. Loneliness changes a person. People think old age is painful because of failing health. They're wrong. The hardest part is silence. Silence while eating breakfast. Silence while watching television. Silence before going to bed. Silence after waking up. Eventually, silence begins talking back to you. So when someone enters your life and fills that silence with kindness, you begin trusting them much faster than you should. I trusted her completely. She became more than a caregiver. She became part of my routine. She knew where I kept important documents. She knew my favorite meals. She knew which photo albums always made me cry. She knew that every Sunday afternoon, I sat in the backyard speaking quietly to my late wife as if she were still sitting beside me. I never felt embarrassed around her. She reminded me that kindness still existed. Even my children liked her. They lived in different states and visited only a few times every year. Whenever they called, she would update them on my health before handing me the phone. Everyone believed I was in good hands, including me. Months passed peacefully. Then small things began disappearing. Nothing valuable. A wristwatch. My reading glasses. Cash I thought I had left inside the kitchen drawer. At first, I blamed my memory. Old age has a way of making you question yourself. You stop trusting your own mind. I searched the entire house for my watch before eventually convincing myself I had probably misplaced it. The same happened with my glasses. The same happened with several envelopes containing cash. Every time something disappeared, I told myself I was simply becoming forgetful. That explanation comforted me. I refused to suspect someone I trusted. A few weeks later, my bank called to verify an unusually large withdrawal. I laughed and told them they must have made a mistake because I hadn't withdrawn that amount. The representative became unusually quiet. She politely informed me the withdrawal had been made in person the previous afternoon. I checked my calendar. I had been home all day. Confused, I contacted my son. He immediately drove over. Together, we visited the bank. Security footage showed someone standing beside me while I signed several documents. At least it appeared to be me. The man in the video wore my coat, my cap, my glasses. From a distance, anyone would have believed it was me. But it wasn't. The signature wasn't mine. The walk wasn't mine. The person had simply dressed enough like me to fool people who weren't paying close attention. My stomach turned cold. Someone had planned this. Someone knew exactly what I looked like. Someone knew my habits. Someone knew which bank I used. Someone knew I rarely left the house. There weren't many people with that knowledge. Police became involved almost immediately. While they investigated, I kept trying to convince myself there had to be some misunderstanding. Maybe my records had been stolen online. Maybe? I kept searching for excuses. Then investigators asked a simple question. Who has access to your house? The answer felt heavy before I even spoke it. My caregiver. They asked if anyone else regularly entered my home. No, only her. They requested permission to examine my financial records. I agreed. Within days, they uncovered several smaller withdrawals stretching back nearly 5 months. Amounts so small, I had never questioned them. 100 euros. 200. 50. 80. Always small enough to disappear unnoticed. Always spaced weeks apart. Thousands of euros had vanished before the larger withdrawal finally attracted the bank's attention. The officers searched my home. They discovered documents had been moved. Personal files had been photographed. My passport had been copied. Insurance papers had been handled. Everything had been quietly organized for someone planning a much bigger theft. I still refused to believe she was responsible. Then the evidence became impossible to ignore. Phone records, financial transfers, surveillance footage from nearby businesses. She had not acted alone. She had been working with relatives who specialized in targeting elderly people living independently. I wasn't the first. I wasn't even the fifth. I was simply the latest. When police arrested her, I didn't feel anger. I felt something much worse. Humiliation. I remembered every meal we had shared, every birthday cake she had baked for me, every Christmas decoration she had helped hang, every encouraging word she had spoken after physical therapy. I replayed every memory, wondering which parts had been genuine and which parts had simply been another step toward gaining my trust. That question haunted me more than the stolen money. Money can be replaced. Trust cannot. My children blamed themselves. They apologized repeatedly for bringing her into my life, but I couldn't let them carry that burden. None of us had seen it coming. Some people spend years learning exactly how to earn another person's confidence before destroying it. She understood elderly people. She knew our weaknesses. She knew loneliness often hurts more than illness. She knew kindness becomes addictive when you've spent years living alone. She knew exactly which emotional doors to open. Looking back, I realized betrayal never begins with cruelty. It begins with comfort. That's what makes it so dangerous. The investigation continued for months. Police eventually uncovered dozens of elderly victims across different cities. Some had lost savings meant to support them for the rest of their lives. Others had lost homes. One elderly widow had unknowingly signed documents giving strangers control over her finances. Compared to them, I considered myself fortunate. Most of my money was recovered. The legal process was long, exhausting, and emotionally draining, but eventually justice arrived. She was convicted. Her entire network fell apart. People congratulated me. They said I was lucky. After everything ended, my children wanted me to move into an assisted living community. I refused, not because I was stubborn, because I needed to prove something to myself. I needed to believe that one person's betrayal could not steal the rest of my life. Eventually, I hired another caregiver. It took nearly a year before I gathered enough courage. The first weeks were uncomfortable. Every missing spoon made me nervous. Every phone call she received made me suspicious. Every time she entered my office, I wondered what she was looking at. Living with constant suspicion is another kind of prison. Slowly, I learned something important. The woman who betrayed me had changed me, but she didn't have to define me. Trust doesn't return all at once. It returns one ordinary day at a time. Today, my house feels peaceful again. Only now, I understand something I wish I had known years ago. Growing old doesn't only make your body fragile, it makes your heart easier to reach. Some people reach it with compassion. Others reach it with deception. The difference isn't always obvious until it's too late. My caregiver betrayed me. She stole my money. She stole my confidence. She stole months of peaceful sleep. But she failed to steal the one thing that mattered most: my belief that there are still good people in this world. At 75 years old, I have learned that life will always test your faith in humanity. Sometimes those tests come from strangers. Sometimes they come from the very people you invite into your home. And if my story has taught me anything, it is this: protect your heart, protect your trust, but never become so afraid of betrayal that you stop allowing kindness into your life. Because without kindness, growing old becomes far lonelier than it ever needed to be.